Welcome to Anticipating Christ's Return YouTube channel, a place where we can gather together and joyfully anticipate the return of our Lord. I hope you enjoy.
Hello everyone, welcome to my channel. My name is Caitlin. Thank you for being here. I've taken the weekend and regrouped, so we are good. Thank you so much for your love and support. Today I want to share with you something that has been on my mind so much, and I've been meaning to sit down and do a video on this for a long time, and I've talked about it in other videos of mine, but there's just so much to it. So please, if I do more videos on this, I'm sorry, but there's a lot to this topic, and it is the Salt Lake City Temple dedication, and kind of what all it might entail. I'm not claiming that it's going to be something huge, but I'm kind of hoping that it is something huge. And with the way that the brethren have emphasized this temple, I feel like it is going to be a turning point moment, and a moment where our eyes are going to be open, and maybe even see the glory of the Lord. Now, when I speak of the glory of the Lord in this sense, and really in any sense, I don't quite know what that means. I'm just going to put that as a disclaimer right now. I don't necessarily know what the glory of the Lord means. Does that mean that we see the Lord face to face? Maybe. But why not just say that? Does it mean that we will have heavenly manifestations and we will see that? I don't know. So when I talk about the glory of the Lord, just so you know, I am not 100% sure what it means, but I like to keep my mind open to the possibilities. So just so you guys know, I'm not like claiming anything miraculous. I'm not claiming the second coming is going to be on the day of the rededication of the Salt Lake City Temple. But is there going to be something miraculous? I hope so. Let's dive into it and let's see. First, I just want to share the fact that, it is going to be in October of 2027. Well, yeah. So they have the open house, and then I don't know if I don't think they haven't announced the date for the temple dedication. So we actually don't know. And so I think it's fun to think about the possibilities, and maybe none of this will be true, and maybe one of them will be true. But the open house is going to last from April 2027 to October 2027, which I find super interesting. I've talked about this a lot before, but the fact that it goes from April General Conference, open house, all the way to October General Conference, and it makes me wonder, is the Salt Lake City Temple going to be dedicated at a session of General Conference? If it is, then let me pull this over for you. Sorry, I was going to share another quote. And actually, no, before I do so, I want to share this quote with you by Garrett W. Gong. He gave a talk in this general conference, and what I think is really interesting, and actually let me go to find what he said versus what his footnotes say. So he said, footnote 22. So right before he said this, he says, each Easter spring season testifies that spiritual sequence and convergence are both part of the divine pattern of atonement, resurrection, and restoration through Jesus Christ. The sacred symbolic conversion comes not by accidents or coincidence. Palm Sunday, Holy Week, and Easter celebrate Christ's atonement and resurrection. As today, every April 6th, we commemorate the establishment of the organization of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. This restoration is a reason we gather the first Sunday each April in General Conference. And then his footnote regarding this says, and I'll try to scroll, so it's right above my pictures, kind of cutting it off, but I'll kind of help you see it. The sacred anniversaries that occur each Easter season sometimes exactly coincide. For example, Easter and General Conference occur on the same Sunday in 2026 and 2029. 2029. Palm Sunday and General Conference occur the same Sunday in 2031. So 2031 is going to be Palm Sunday, and 2034. Oh, that's actually an interesting year too. So Palm Sunday 2034 is going to be General Conference. Interesting. I think it's interesting that they're even pointing this out, honestly. Like the fact that he's pointing it out and he's being like, oh, by the way, like Palm Sunday and General Conference are that. Anyway, okay. And then he says, Easter during General Conference 2026 and 2029. So 2026 is going to be Easter, and that is going to be the start of the Salt Lake City Temple dedication that year. So that's interesting as well. So, okay. Regardless of whether or not these anniversaries coincide exactly, we understand that their convergence proximity is not by coincidence or accidents. It is sacred and symbolic. Okay, so we have the green light, if you will. We have this from Elder Garrett W. Gong saying that we should look at these anniversaries and the dates and these holy days. So, and I know that there are people who have talked about this. I know that Jen from Christian Fire Poppy has talked about this. I know that Jared has probably talked about this. I'm sure others have talked about this. So it's just so exciting that now, instead of us being like crazy weirdos that are like, oh, this might have significance, Elder Gong is like, no, it does have significance. It absolutely does. It is sacred and symbolic, and it is not by coincidence or accident. God has his hand in this work. So, with all that being said, I'm getting excited. I want to share with you guys the possibility, and it's just a possibility, I know that, the possibility of the dedication of the Salt Lake City Temple landing on one of these 3 holy days. And in the comment section, I would absolutely love if you would put what day would mean most to you. Not that we have a say, but what day would be most significant to you. And we're going to talk about them. So the first day, and maybe possibly the most, the most probable, in my own opinion, is it landing on Rosh Hashanah. Now, the reason I say it's probably the most probable, I was thinking if I could think of another word that, anyway, the possibility. Okay. I'm a weirdo. It's fine. The reason I think this is most probable is because this is when General Conference would naturally fall in 2027. So if you look, the dates of Rosh Hashanah in 2027, trust me on this, that this is the year 2027, but it falls on October, so nightfall on Friday, the October 1st, and then it goes all throughout Sunday until nightfall. So you have the preparation of General Conference on Friday, which if any of you are like me, you go to the store Friday, you like get all excited. We like to set up our tents so that we are facing kind of like the story of King Benjamin. where they all go to listen, and they all pitch their tents to hear the voice of the Lord. And we do that. We, in my family, we do that. And so Friday night is always our preparation for General Conference. My husband makes his cinnamon rolls to rise, and we set up the tents, and it's just this preparation of receiving the word of the Lord. And it goes all the way through Sunday at nightfall, which we know General Conference lasts all week. It ends a little before nightfall. And then, one moment. Okay, sorry. And then after General Conference ends, you still kind of have this celebration, if you're anything like me, where you then have dinner as a family. Typically, that's what we do. And we talk about the talks and what we're going to do for the next 6 months, and what it all meant, and what our favorite things were that were said. So to me, the most likely, and this is why I call it the most likely, which I have no idea, honestly, but temple dedications happen on Sundays. And with the Salt Lake City Temple rededication being as big of a deal as it is, I just think, why wouldn't it be in a worldwide broadcast? Now, with that being said, there are challenges to this. So I'm not without my challenges. So here are some of the things that I think, well, this is probably why it couldn't happen during a General Conference, is because General Conference is public, number one. And in order to attend a temple dedication, you have to be temple worthy with a recommend, and you have to be older than 8 years old. And I don't know if that is something that could be changed. I think it could, because with the Kirtland Temple, they said that there were babies there, and like the babies started talking, right? And witnessing angels and miraculous things. So the age thing, maybe we can get around. The temple worthiness, though, I don't know. That one's a tricky one for me. What do you guys think in the comments? I think, and each, so typically, most recently, and we're having another one coming up soon, but most recently we have been a part of the Layton, Utah temple dedication. And so we gather to our stake centers. For Layton Temple, they had it in 2 sessions, which is nice, because with people, for like young kids like me, it's nice to be able to, either swap off with like your husband or your wife, or to like find babysitters in the ward, or to find family members if you live close to family members. And so, anyway, but it was in 2 sessions, and we went to our stake center. The temples just aren't large enough to hold everyone that could go. And so you go to your stake center, and the stake center becomes an extension of the temple. They kind of phrase it, right? Like they say, okay, doors are locked. I don't know if they have to like do a special blessing over. I have no idea how that all works. But they essentially just say, okay, this is going to be an extension of the temple. My thought, though, is why couldn't they do something similar? Either with stake centers or church buildings, or like, why couldn't, and this is where like my imagination has gone a little bit wild, but we have temples dotting the earth, and it's like, well, why couldn't we open up each temple and allow people to enter into the temple to participate in the Salt Lake City Temple dedication? Now, I know that sounds a little crazy, and it sounds like a lot of work, and it probably will never happen, but like, how cool would that be if the temple dedication is like as big as like I'm hoping. But like, how cool would that be to have saints from all over the world gathered in their own temple to be a part of this holy day and to be able to wave their white handkerchiefs and shout, Hosanna, Hosanna, Hosanna to God and the Lamb. Save us now. How cool would that be? I think it would be way cool. Regardless of how it happens, I believe that the Salt Lake City Temple dedication is going to be a big event. It's going to be large. I believe that it will probably likely the possibilities of it being a worldwide broadcast, and whoever wants to tune in could go to their stake center or whatever. I believe that this one is going to be worldwide. That's just me. I have no insights, but no direct knowledge of what's going to happen. However, I think it's going to be cool. So with that all being said, that is why I think it could land on Rosh Hashanah, because General Conference. Like, how cool would it be if they were like, hey, you know what? This year, instead of doing General Conference in the conference center, we're going to do General Conference from the temple. That'd be cool. I don't think it's, again, I'm like, could it not be? Remember when President Nelson became prophet and he spoke in the Salt Lake City Temple? Like, the first time he spoke, it was in the Salt Lake City Temple annex. And he was like, I want to start my presidency beginning with the end in mind. And he was standing in the Salt Lake City Temple. And I'm like, well, hello, that would be so cool. I don't know. I have no idea. I don't know if it's even possible, but I think it'd be cool. Okay, another few days. So Rosh Hashanah, here's kind of, I kind of want to dive into some meanings of this. So the meaning of Rosh Hashanah is it marks the new year. It honors the creation date of Adam and Eve and the first relationship of the human connection with God's world. And let's see, Rosh Hashanah, there's also, why? Okay. Yeah. So on Rosh Hashanah, they have a tradition of blowing a shofar or a ram's horn. And, this is so interesting. Historically, the use of a shofar varied from communicating signals in battles to announcing the beginning of the Sabbath. Now it is primarily used at synagogue services at this time of year. So I think this is interesting. The Rosh Hashanah, the shofar, the Feast of Trumpets, this blowing, it's either of this battle, but what I find actually maybe more interesting is the fact, and let me find this, is the fact that Rosh Hashanah and the Feast of Trumpets, actually, we have history in the church of this. So let me adjust this for you so you guys can see the words. Okay. So the Feast of Trumpets, or Rosh Hashanah, is the Jewish New Year. And then it says one of its original names was the Day of Remembrance. This name arose because the Lord commanded Israel to blow trumpets on the day for remembrance. And so I think that's interesting. The day that God remembers his promises. Think of that. Think of that in regards to the glory of the Lord. That the Lord has, and the reason I say that is because of this video, right? The Lord has promised to come in great glory and to manifest himself to us and to save us, and he is covenanted. So I think that's interesting. The day that God remembers his promises, you could swap out promises with covenants. And the fact that the Lord remembers his covenants, that he saves, that he is worthy to save, that he is able to save, and the fact that we covenant with him to be saved. I love that. I love that idea of the fact that God remembers his promises, but he also promises to gather us. So I'm going to go up. So this is the beginning of the final harvest. Let me actually go up a little bit more. Sorry. And I hope that I'm not reading too much, but I find that this is so interesting. Let me tell you where I'm at. This is titled, I've quoted this before, but this is titled The Golden Plates, the Feast of Trumpets, January 2000. In this, it's talking about the Feast of Trumpets and how it correlates with Moroni giving the gold plates to Joseph Smith, which is so interesting because Angel Moroni, he gave the gold plates to Joseph Smith. He is found on the temples blowing a trumpet. There's no coincidences. Okay, so these are the later harvest. Earlier it talks about maybe the early spring harvest. These are the later harvest, and these are how we celebrate these fall feast days. The Lord sets forth another series of holy days for the 7th month, coinciding with the latter, or autumn harvest. They are the 1, Feast of Trumpets, 2, the Day of Atonement, which this video is already getting long, so maybe I should just say now, this would also be a cool day to have the temple dedication. The Day of Atonement was the day where the priests were able to enter into the Holy of Holies, to enter it symbolically into God's presence. It would make sense. The day that Christ died, the veil was rent from top to bottom. That has significance as well, the Day of Atonement. So that's a possibility. And then the Feast of Tabernacles, or the Feast of Booths. These holy days are held prophetic significance, for they have important relationship to the Lord's spiritual gleaning in the latter days. So there is a second witness to that these days have important relationships to the Lord's gathering in these final days. That is why they celebrated these days, to look forward to the gathering of Israel, the harvest, the second coming of Jesus Christ. This article will focus on the Feast of Trumpets. It's important to note that on the 22nd of September, do you remember? Okay, sorry. Moroni gave the gold plates to the prophet Joseph Smith. Since this feast was ripe with meaning for the theme of the regathering of Israel, it is unlikely that the timing was accidental. Elder Garrett W. Gong said the same thing. Indeed, young Joseph was asked to meet Moroni for 4 years in preparation for that significant day in 1827. Interesting. Holy cow. That's interesting. That just hit me. I'm sorry. I'm like, sometimes I'm a little dense. But you guys, 1827. And the temple dedication, the rededication of the Salt Lake City Temple is going to be in 1827, the fall. Or sorry, you know what I mean. 200 years from that. Of 2027. 200 years from the time we received the Book of Mormon. You guys, that is cool. That is not by accident, you guys. Okay. So, I mean, that makes me wonder. Okay, one second. I'm sorry. I have to go down this rabbit hole, but I won't make you go down it with me. You guys, I'm taking you down this rabbit hole. Because my mind is blown. I change my day. I change it. You guys. So Sukkot. So, okay, and this is maybe not a perfect correlation, because 2027, this would be October, so this isn't even going to be in September. Let's see. Actually, okay, I got all excited, and then I think I messed up the date. But yeah, you know what? I messed up the date. It's fine. It's still so cool. So Sukkot, which is also the Feast of Tabernacles, that is going to be on Friday, October 15th to Friday, October 22nd. So it's kind of in there. Which, I'm sorry, when I like mind blown myself, I thought it was September, and I was like, oh, there's no way. Which, you're right, there is no way. But so Sukkot is actually really interesting, and I was like, oh, that could mean, let's see, where is it? So Sukkot is the Feast of Tabernacles, and it celebrates the gathering of the harvest and dwelling of God with his people. Some interpret it as the foreshadowing of the Messianic kingdom, where God will dwell among his people, as described in Zechariah 2:10 and Zechariah 14:12 through 19. So, you guys, I hope it coincided with Sukkot. I was hoping that actually that Sukkot that year would correlate with that day. Anyway, it didn't, which I don't think is like a huge deal anyway, but it's interesting, which we don't even know. So one day we're going to know the day of that dedication, and we can then get excited too. But I don't think that any of this is symbolic. I don't think that any of this is just like, I mean, it is symbolic. I don't think it's what's the word? Like coincidental. I don't think that any of this is coincidental. Okay, I do want to keep sharing this with you, and then I will end. But it says, the Latter-day Saints can find it especially instructive to study some of the meanings Jewish scholars have attributed to the Feast of Trumpets. It signifies, one, the beginning of Israel's final harvest. So we know that we have been gathering Israel since the beginning of this dispensation. Two, the day that God has set to remember his ancient promises to regather Israel. He will gather us. And honestly, I've talked a lot about this too, but I don't think that the gathering of Israel is going to be complete until, we're going to continue it in the millennium. So that final time, I think it's been emphasized that we are asked to gather Israel more urgently. And I think that maybe that urging is, I know that urging is just going to continue. And then in the millennium, we are going to dedicate our whole lives to this, if we haven't already. And so, anyway, that God remembers his ancient promises to gather Israel. And that is gathering all that is willing to let God prevail in their lives. And three, a time for new revelation that would lead to a new covenant with Israel, and a time to prepare for the millennium. So, okay, new revelation. You can see how this was fulfilled with the Book of Mormon, and that's kind of like my one issue I have with it being maybe on the Feast of Trumpets is, has it already been fulfilled with the Book of Mormon? And is there going, is the Salt Lake City Temple dedication, is it going to be a fulfillment of one of these other Jewish holy days? Is it going to be the Day of Atonement, where we can enter into God's presence, where we can, all those who have prepared spiritually, no longer is it just the priests, the, sons of Aaron, but it is all of us, right? Because of the atonement of Jesus Christ, can we all enter into the presence of God? I would find it very significant if it happened on Yom Kippur. the Day of Atonement. That would be so interesting to me. Or like we said, Sukkot, which represents God being in our presence. That he is just going to, the glory of the Lord might be revealed on that day. And will the glory of the Lord remain with those covenant makers and keepers when they leave? We know that we in the temple we are blessed with power and great glory, and that when we leave we carry those blessings with us. And what if it becomes even more fulfilled? What if it becomes even more literal, that the glory of the Lord could be seen? Even people who are not participating in temple work or going to the house of the Lord, what if those who aren't even worthy of entering into the temple can see the glory of the Lord resting upon his holy house? I find that is a real possibility. So anyway, I wanted to talk about all these feast days, the potential of it, and just a reminder we don't have to wait to 2027. We have been told by President Nelson that every sincere seeker of Jesus Christ can find him in the temple. It is his holy house. And as we go to the temple, as we go to the house of the Lord, we have the opportunity and the privilege to be in his presence. And I hope that our faith can become so strong that we can rend the veil of unbelief, that we can see him there. I don't think that is just something pretty that they are telling us. I think that they are urging us to go to the house of the Lord and see him there. I believe it. And I believe that it is probably happening and that it will continue to happen for those of us who are sincere seekers. I am so grateful for this gospel. I'm so grateful for the house of the Lord, for the strength that it gives us. I am grateful for prayers. The fact that maybe sometimes I know that there's a lot of you out there that don't have access to enter into the house of the Lord, and that breaks my heart. But there can be prayers on your behalf in the house of the Lord. And as you remember your covenants wherever you are, then you can remember that God has made these promises and that God is a covenant keeper. He keeps his covenants. We may remove ourselves from him, but he will never remove himself from us. I love you guys. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this, please please share it with friends and family and those you love, those you minister to. Share it with those who get excited about things like this as well. And please subscribe and please leave a comment. What do you guys think? And I love you guys. I am so grateful for you guys. I don't know what we would do without you guys. Your love and your support and your messages and everything has just buoyed us up and helped us in this dark time. So I love you guys for that. Thank you so much. I hope you have a great day and we'll talk soon.